Welcome to Subject to Change, a sustainability podcast. We're here with Nick Carparelli to learn more about concrete masonry units.
Do you just know each other professionally? Did you go to school together? Like what's the background?
As I do remember, it was one of the first lunch and learn seminars that I did when I first became director of New York State Concrete Masonry Association. That's going on 20 years now.
Yeah. So it might have even been, but before I was with CS Arch. It's right on that line there. It might have been right when I joined them.
Yeah.
And I was a newly minted lead AP and had just gotten my license in architecture. So, and I was too timid to be preaching the word of sustainability, but that changed pretty quickly.
Yes, it did. You got over that very fast.
I feel like I wouldn't have even recognized that person you just described.
Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. When you see the little microphone in the lower right, click on that to learn more. We're so glad you're here.
I think soon after that presentation, Nick, I think I did a presentation internal to the office and I called it The 8 Habits of Highly Effective Green People.
Something like that, yeah.
And cool. Then that grew into the 9 habits. And Jim and I have used that a couple of times as a framework for presentations that we've done.
That's great. That's terrific.
There's just some skills that you need if you're going to change the world.
Yeah.
So I just, summed them up very briefly for people just in case.
I want you to do, instead of a book report, I want you to do that presentation and post it, Jody.
Okay. Just for as a little tease.
Yeah.
There's references to Star Trek in there. There's references to marathon runners. There's a nice story about the Wright brothers. And Marilyn Monroe is featured.
What do these things all have in common?
It started in Utica in the 1930s.
My background, my dad, his brothers, and their father started a block manufacturing business back in the 1930s in Utica, New York. And right around the time of World War II, they added ready-mix concrete. And they built up a pretty successful business over the years. So I've been involved in it in one way, shape, or another all my life.
Of course, be careful what you wish for.
1998, I took a job with the American Concrete Pavement Association. I was the upstate New York director of the ACPA. And from there, through some acquaintances and friends that I developed on the American Concrete Institute Syracuse chapter board, I was asked to, apply for the job as executive director of New York State Concrete Masonry Association. I said, well, what the heck, what have I got to lose? So I did. And, it's a case of be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. And now here I am almost 20 years later as the director of NYS CMA.
20 years goes fast.
Over that 20 years, here's the first big question.
Uh-oh.
Over that 20 years, there have been a lot of changes.
Oh boy.
What was a change that maybe challenged you more than others? And could you tell us about it a little bit?
The biggest change, there's been several, as I said. One change has been consolidation in the industry. When I first became director of the association, there were over 40, something like 44 or 45 independent block producers in New York State alone.
I didn't realize there were that many.
Yeah, there's still a lot. We still have a lot of capacity, but through consolidation and through people retiring and just going out of business, that number's down to around 32. Another big challenge that is ongoing, and we've worked with another group, Upstate Masonry Institute, is workforce development. You can sell all the blocks you want, but if you don't have the labor to put things together, that's a problem.
Got milk?
Right now, I'd say the biggest challenge to our industry is something called our checkoff program. One of the big challenges we faced over the years is really a minimal budget, both nationwide and statewide. We just don't have a large enough budget to do the things we want to do, whether that's get masonry programs into schools like RPI, RIT and so forth, or whether it's just to do some out and out promotion, to advertise, to get out and help create the demand among the design community. So we put together 12 years ago on a national level, something called the checkoff program. Got milk? That's a checkoff program. In other words, the milk producers check off or set aside a certain amount per gallon or per 100 weight, goes to a national fund, and it's promotion. It's beef, it's what's for dinner. The incredible edible egg. These are all checkoff
Okay, so
programs.
far the vegan Jody is like really cheering for the concrete masonry unit checkoff program, but not some No, but those are very familiar. So it's a successful program.
Indeed.
And you've gotten, do the individual manufacturers have to opt in to the checkoff program, or are they all automatically required as part of Department of Commerce?
They're all automatically required. If it was just the ability to opt in, if it was purely voluntary, probably could have had this done 12 years ago. But also we wouldn't have the potential for the amount of money that could potentially be collected. So by going all mandatory, if you will, it required a vote across the country. It required a lot of things.
I'm so curious what the tagline is going to be for CMU for concrete bricks.
So am I.
Could be
not your father's concrete block. I don't know.
Yeah. How about the module of our future?
To go far, go together.
That's amazing. I think that's really good. It's another example of how aggregating and unifying a diverse group of people or industries or participants can get you to places that you can't get when you try and go it alone.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's really cool.
Time to talk about embodied carbon.
I know one of the things that's changed a lot, and you helped with writing and supporting the lower carbon concrete spec. One of the things is a growing awareness of the embodied carbon in concrete masonry units, concrete bricks. How has your association, how have your individual participants been grappling with that? I'm sure it's a challenge to some and it's an opportunity to others. And what are some of the things you've learned?
Well, what I've seen across the country and in the Northeast is there are some progressive producers who recognize, hey, this is it. This is the coming thing. We need to do something. So, the NCMA has come up with, National Concrete Masonry Association has developed the product category rules. So now individual producers have come up with their own environmental product declarations. There are others who say, my customers can't even spell EPD, so why should I bother? In the middle, we've gone to at the national level. We recognize that, like the National Ready Mix Concrete Association, we need an industry average EPD. And so we're working on that. I'm on the technical subcommittee to help develop that. Yeah. So that's exciting. So we're doing that. I mean, you see it. You just see it everywhere, especially in New York City. And we have a very progressive block producer who's located in, of all places, Brooklyn, New York. And she, the CEO, the owner, she has already gone in that direction and developed EPDs for all her products. So again, as you're aware, it's not an inexpensive process, but it's necessary.
And it's never all or nothing.
Just to make sure that people who are listening have an idea of what an EPD is, can you give us a couple of sentence description?
Environmental product declaration, sure. It basically measures the how can I do this somewhat intelligently? And basically, it's a scorecard or of potential greenhouse gas equivalents that the product is responsible for.
Mhm. That's great. Thank you. And I think EPDs cover everything that the environmental impacts of producing. So it also can include information on water, information on
Yes.
contaminants that are released, those kind of things. What's really cool is, at least in the concrete spec, guidance spec that we wrote, we clarified, it's like you said, it's very expensive to do an EPD for a product, but there can be, and you mentioned this already, an industry average EPD that gives a
Right.
sense of the big picture. Then there can be a regional EPD, which can get a
Mhm.
little closer to what's happening in your area of the nation. And then there could be a product specific EPD. So
Right.
in that spec, we were able to write it saying, look, we really want the product specific one, but we know things are still changing and not everyone has that. So
Right.
next on the list is regional. And then if there isn't that, let's go with the industry average. And if that's not available, we encourage you to get one. And here's some information that can help you do better even without getting that
Right.
paperwork.
A lot of people ask, why change?
And it's like people are making innovations in windows all the time and in heating and cooling systems all the time, but changing concrete, why? It's been around since, the Romans first put concrete down, and those things still exist. So why are we changing it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Like,
The Pantheon
really?
still stands. So
Yeah,
it
right.
says, so why bother? But
Glass half full.
I'm actually interested in some of the leadership aspects of the work you do, Nick, because I have always known you to be a calm and collaborative voice. Whenever something that comes up that's new, you're really willing to talk about it with people and get their inputs and invite conversation. When you said that the association
that.
members went from 45 to 32, that's one challenge that I think. Did you navigate that at the beginning of the time that you were executive director?
Well, actually, it wasn't the association membership. I'm sorry if I misspoke. It was
no.
total number of producers in New
Total
York
producers.
State.
Okay.
Right now, we have. The good news about that is that it's easier to increase the percentage of producers in the association based on the number of available producers in the state.
You're a glass
But
half full kind of guy, right?
always. But we did have some challenges. I mean, obviously, COVID was one of them. But fortunately, we were considered an essential industry. And really, our producers had two sets of rules to follow. One for the hardware store or store portion, where they greet the customers and sell trowels and so forth, other items retail. And the other for manufacturing the concrete block, keeping the plants running. They were extremely busy. As you know, in the early days, when nobody knew what was going to happen tomorrow or 2 hours from now, there was a lot of panic. There was a lot of, phone calls back and forth. What have you heard? Who can you call? Are you sure that we can run? So once we got through those first couple of months, I would say those early weeks, things seemed to settle down. Thank goodness for the Business Council of New York State. They were a big help to us.
Installation is another issue.
That's one part of it. Production is one part, but installation is another part. And obviously we've got labor shortages seemingly everywhere. So is that on production? Is that on installation? Is that on things I'm not even thinking of?
All of the above. On the Mason side of things, there, as I said, Upstate Masonry Institute that's their bailiwick, so to speak. We, in New York State Concrete Masonry Association, we are concerned over production. But yes, it's difficult to find good people who want to stay, people who are willing to, as you alluded to earlier, work hard, work in a rather dusty, noisy, dirty environment. in an air-conditioned block plant with machinery that throws off a lot of heat on days like we've been having. And conversely, yeah, there's heat in the block plant in the wintertime, but that's a challenge too. And then it's tough to find drivers, truck drivers.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You know, it's one thing to drive the truck from point A to point B, but it's another thing to now remove the load from the truck and place it where the customer wants it.
And we certainly need to tackle process loads.
One of the things that's going to be important in getting to a lower carbon future is also changing manufacturing cycles and processes like heat recovery, and how can that heat become energy to fuel the line, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. What I've seen over the years is an increase in efficiency, overall efficiency of the speed of the machines. So, you know, the more block you can make, the less energy, you know, you're putting out per unit.
Yeah.
Per unit.
That's cool.
Larger capacity machines. You know, there are machines out there that'll make 6 units at a time instead of the traditional 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there's just a little increase in probably pouring in the mix, but otherwise you're nearly doubling your production.
Pretty much. Yeah. You're somewhat limited by what you're, you know, the block producing process. Have you ever visited a block plant, ever toured a plant?
No, but when I was doing, I forget which project it was, we did this really cool kind of blended mix, so you could still see 2 different colors kind of amorphous through the block, and we had to predetermine the number of units so that the run could be specific to that mix. It was almost like when I buy yarn to knit, I have to buy everything from the same dye lot.
Right.
So we had to have all the blocks from the same dye lot.
Right.
Skills are needed.
If we would see additional people going into the labor force if they knew that it was becoming mechanized.
You have to wear a lot of hats. You need welding skills. You need to be able to program a computer. You know, you need to be able to.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, because everything is computer controlled now. And you need all sorts of mechanical skills, and otherwise you're going to be spending a lot of money on people to come in and fix what might be a very, very minor problem. Will it make it easier? Yeah, I think so. If we can make it look a little more attractive, and I think we can get more people to come into the industry. I think a lot of this is a lot of these are mom and pop operations, really.
Yeah.
Some of them are 2nd, 3rd, even 4th generations involved in these businesses. There are 2 of our members that are celebrating 100 years in business this year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's hard to believe in this day and age that they'd have the longevity. And there is that next generation on the way up to carry it forward. And I think that's where a lot of the people come from. That's where a lot of it's hands-on.
Part of that check program also advertising about the future for people, the opportunities for people coming to work in the industry.
Workforce development.
We were talking about, my boyfriend and I were talking about this last night. He works in construction. He's a construction manager, and he's been struggling to find people to do the work. And one of the lines of work that he specifically stated was, we are going to be in trouble when it comes to masonry. The job is hard. You have to carry big, heavy loads. You've got, you know, it's a lot of work. And I was kind of joking when I said, I go, work release. I don't know. Maybe we'll train nonviolent offenders of something to, I didn't know. I mean, masonry was not the only thing that we were talking about, but it was one of the things that was pointed out. And I'm like, I don't know. We got a lot of people. Maybe we can train them and then they have a job post.
Yeah.
Well, you know, funny you should mention that.
Really?
Yeah, because our fall conference, which is going to be in November, one of the people I've asked to speak is from the Department of Corrections. Because it's, and if you go to the Department of Corrections, they have tremendous programs.
They do.
Yes, they do.
And low carbon career futures.
Another source, and I'm surprised that even we haven't tried to tap it, is Fort Drum. Soldiers who are coming out, these guys have been trained, guys and gals have been trained, right?
Yeah.
So
that's interesting, because by bringing that up, what you're talking about is an intersection of two seemingly different problems that can help solve each other, which I think is really powerful.
Yeah.
I like that reference to Fort Drum, because of course in the 40s it was the GI Bill that helped us to improve our educational baseline and to have a focus for people coming back from war, and made the innovation of the 60s and 70s possible, really. And this, it could be an opportunity to train people to be part of, with the help of the Concrete Masonry Association and others, a lower carbon building future.
Exactly.
Which I think is really incredible. You know what? I'm always suspicious, and you know this, Nick, that I'm always suspicious of the claims of sequestration in concrete and concrete masonry units, because there has been some, I'm not going to say intentional greenwashing, but some things that felt like promises bigger than what they actually were when you did the math. And that happens in every industry. I'm not trying to throw bad vibes onto concrete at all. But I think that if we really look at it honestly, there is an element of sequestration. There are some numbers there. It's a smaller percentage when I do the math than I expected out of the gate, or when Jim did the math. Let's be honest, Jim did the math and I just shared the math. But the thing that's really important about concrete and concrete masonry units is the durability and the longevity. And I think that's where, in my mind, the power lies, is in taking that material that can last for centuries, and we know that, and using it in buildings that need to last for centuries.
Yeah.
I think personally that we shouldn't be using CMU in strip malls that we plan to tear down in 20 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually make material sense to me.
Unless you fully intend to recycle that concrete.
Yeah, and there are ways to recycle it as fill. There are more ways to recycle if you're able to break down a wall and clean up things. That's a labor-intensive process, but it's doable. There are all different aspects of it, but quite often, and it's really unfortunate because I don't think it benefits the impression of the value of CMU, is that a lot of the buildings that go up quick and are torn down are like just straight runs of plain CMU with maybe a color band. I'm thinking like a Home Depot.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because it can be so incredibly beautiful and long-lived.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I agree 100%. I wouldn't try to promote that the convenience store chain convert to concrete masonry units, because in fact, like you say, 10 years, 15 years, you're going to tear it down and go to a new design anyway.
No, well, that's something else that has to change. But while that's still happening, let's avoid doing that with concrete.
Right.
Let's do the wrap up.
I love your nature, Nick. I just have to say this. You have this way of talking that is so welcoming.
Well, thank you.
And I appreciate it every time we talk.
Well, I always enjoy our get-togethers, so but I appreciate the kind words. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So first question. It's a real easy one. We try and make these videos create connection in the moment, but also create connection to other people that we can learn from, or other people that are inspiring. So we ask, who's your hero? Who do you want to share with us that could inspire us further?
My hero, huh?
Yeah. In any realm of your life, work, it doesn't matter.
To tell you the truth, my heroes are the people who inspire me are my producer members of this association.
It's great.
Who have worked through so much that I've seen over the last 20 years, whether it's, adapting to new regulations, getting through a pandemic, These are the folks who sign their paychecks on the front. Those are the folks. They take the responsibility every day, and those are my heroes.
That's great. And I think it's great by saying that you're also kind of grounding the idea, hopefully for the people who will be watching this, that when you see a building go up, think about who's making those materials.
Yeah.
Think about where those come from. Likely, if it's concrete masonry units, they're not being shipped from China.
No.
They're local production with local aggregates and definitely local labor. It's happening there. That's really important to remember, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything plastic is probably coming from abroad. But masonry,
undoubtedly. Yeah.
It's around the corner, I'm sure.
Oh gosh.
What, do you think that was too strong?
No, that was funny. With 32 producers in New York State, they literally could be right around the corner.
Yeah, that's true.
That's very
true.
cool.
Is there I can go on to one of the organizations that you've already discussed, right? And I can find my list.
Oh, absolutely.
Producers.
You can go to our website, nyscma.org. And right on the homepage, if you scroll down, there's a map of New York State.
And Nick's focus surprised us.
If we could ask all of humanity to take a collective pause and focus on just one initiative, what should everybody be focused on if you had your say?
Oh, wow. The first thing that pops into my head, and I say it half in jest, but half seriously, is let's figure out how to abandon drive-throughs at fast food joints and stuff like this, because you see a line of cars from here to God knows where, all sitting there idling, wasting gas, wasting fuel, and putting CO2 into the air. Or at least make it mandatory, turn the car off while you're sitting there.
That's
and
awesome.
Let's face facts, we could all use a few extra steps. It's just good
there's
for the body.
Get out and get some exercise. Yes, exactly.
It's just good
Yeah.
to stretch.
Oh my God. Go ahead.
Now, the only time I ever used a drive-through was at the bank when it was closed because of COVID.
Mm.
And that was the only way to make a deposit. But
We walk up to the drive-through at the bank when we're on our walks. We walk up and use the drive-through.
That's cool.
It's so funny. But the other thing about drive-throughs is think about how much that amplifies the pavement around. Like, think of a standalone Starbucks,
right?
And there's parking, and then there's again that much pavement in order to create a drive-through around the other side.
Right.
Why? I love that answer.
That was out of left field, and I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you very much. Great.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks.
I'm glad this worked out.
Both. Thank you.
So nice to meet you. I learned a ton.
It's very nice to meet you too.
We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Be well.
You too.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.